Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm very vertically challenged. I hope you can see me behind this giant lectern here. I'm really excited to hear that we've got a collection of hospitality, entrepreneurship, and business, yeah? So I think there's so much overlap. Nothing happens in isolation in this world. And when it comes to these professions, there's so much overlap between those three. So it's really great to have you all here today, and I'm very humbled to have an opportunity to speak with you. I'm very sort of free-flowing, so don't feel like you have to sit there and wait till I'm finished if you have a question that pops up. I'm going to sort of do a little bit of a very brief timeline of my own path, which kind of parallels with what I do today. We'll sort of pop in and out of different roles that I've held, different jobs that I've had that match what you're all looking forward to. And at any time, if somebody has a particular question, just don't hesitate to call out if I don't see you or put a hand up or whatever. But I think as much as it can be interactive and be specific to what your interests are, that's more important than what I choose to talk about. So I can always adapt that to you. So a little bit about myself. That's me standing there in the little outfit, the little dark outfit. My parents were both Australians, both very keen surfers, and in the late 60s went on safari to South Africa where the surf was really supposed to be pumping. Endless Summer, I don't know if you've ever seen that film, but that was inspiration for them. And Australians, are there any Australians in the room other than me? Well, we're pretty broad traveling people. And you don't have to have a plan, you don't really have to have any money, you just need to have a little bit of inspiration and we'll go anywhere. So I hope you can understand my accent. When we were in South Africa, we had the great fortune of just encountering a Hawaiian gentleman by the name of Eddie Aikau, who became a pretty well-known big wave rider in his own life. And we actually got in our combi van and headed down the east coast of South Africa in search of waves, and he joined us on that journey. And it was through that chance meeting, not so chance, it was kind of through an event there, but it was through meeting Eddie Aikau that we started to come to Hawaii starting in about 1973. So I spent some time here as a very young child, and then we moved back to Australia in time for me to go to school. But the world tour of surfing started up around the time that we went back to Australia. And we used to end up being the hosts for professional surfers who were from Hawaii and South Africa. They'd all come crash on the floor at our house and save their pennies and travel the world and go in this burgeoning new sport of surfing. So it was great fortune for me to have been involved in the sport from the very get-go and to grow up around peers of my parents who started companies like Quicksilver and Billabong and Rip Curl, and grow up in parallel with the industry itself. So the sports industry of surfing and my own life were about the same age. We're about 48 to 50 years old right now. So that's been a wonderful path for me, but I wanted to give you that little bit of a story because I think all of our careers end up being the sum of what our own experiences along the way are. And people will tell you to pursue a passion and make your passion your profession and all of these sorts of things. But I think what you're going to do, hopefully for your most successful life, is pull out the things that are uniquely your personality, are uniquely your experiences, are uniquely your family and personal values, and are reflections of the culture that you've grown up in. And you all in the Brigham Young University and your whole community worldwide have got so much of that to draw upon. So you're really in a very unique situation, I think, to make some incredible careers. So nowadays, my life looks more like this. Putting on events, big and small in terms of stature, but all championship tour events that will crown world champions of our sport. And that takes me to all around the Pacific primarily, although I have worked at different times in all countries that have great waves. But nowadays I'm focused on Australia, Indonesia, Tahiti, North America, Hawaii. And the culture and the business climate, excuse me, the economies and just the environments that we work in are so unique to each destination. And that's the fun part of becoming adaptive, about learning about different cultures, about embracing different business methods, and finding ways to translate whatever it is you do to that location. And to do it in a meaningful way that provides experiences for the local communities that you're walking into, that provide business opportunities for those communities as well, so that there's a much greater benefit than just surfing. I often say to people, if surfing was just about putting on events for me, I wouldn't be interested. It's the opportunity to meet people, it's the opportunity to learn from other people and grow your own skill set. That is such the appeal, and that comes potentially through any career if you really put yourself out there. But I think I'm fortunate to travel and really get into those up against the wall situations where you have to learn on the fly. So sort of going beyond your comfort zone and getting into regions that are brand new, which I know many of you will do through your missions and so forth. It's daunting, and it always depends upon making new friends and colleagues along the way. But really it's in that discomfort zone that you're going to stretch yourselves the most, that you're going to learn the most, and those most uncomfortable situations will become the great reflections that connect the dots for you on your own path. So that's kind of me now, professional surfing. If you're around over the winter, you'll find me on the North Shore. We have the Vans Triple Crown, and this is a shot from the Pipe Masters. I put this spot in here because our jobs, whether in hospitality, business, events, as an entrepreneur, and I did own my own company and contract to the world tour and different companies in surfing for 17 years. So I've been on the other side of it, on the entrepreneur side as well. And it's really about understanding how you see the world and how your client views the world. And your client might be the person hiring you, or it might be the visitor who's arriving at the hotel where you work or at the experience that you deliver. So this is an opportunity. Last year, we offered a job to what we called our Ambassador of Stoke and Leisure. It was a social media kind of a competition that we put out there, and we had entries from all around the world. We ended up with someone from North America, but we had a lot of entries from around the world, and this person had to come and capture through their own eyes how they saw the Triple Crown and how they saw the island of Oahu. So I'm going to play this for you because that's the vision I think we always have to connect to, is how we see it and how others interpret that as well. I'll see if I can make this work. So I'm sure you must hear a lot about the Millennial Audience, because you're all it, right? Who's not a millennial here other than me? Poor us. So our job is to try to understand you all, right? It's a big challenge out there in the workplace at the moment. But we do pretty well with that at the World Surf League. We're a very youth-oriented, very highly social media engaged organization. And we have a lot of fun through social media and our different platforms. We have a huge audience. I think when I checked last week, we're up around 7 million followers on our Facebook, and we're up around 3 million or so on Instagram. And so we learn a lot through how you all interpret the world and how you see us. So the guy that you saw in that video just there, his job was to come for 6 weeks and experience the Triple Crown. And we ended up compiling that 30-second spot there and sharing that with the Hawaii Tourism Authority for them to use, because they were very challenged in understanding how to reach millennials and that sort of adventurous target group in attracting them to come to Hawaii. Okay. Oh, did I just change that myself? All right. So when I moved to Oahu after being on the tour, working in different capacities for many years, we were sort of challenged with what was very much a country town. Not that we wanted to destroy that at all, that was really the appeal of it. But not many people really knew about the North Shore 25 years ago. So when I came here, I figured that the way forward would be to collaborate with the visitor industry. And that involved going to Turtle Bay Resort and getting to know everybody there and having a venue that we could call home. And then also going to the likes of Oahu Visitors Bureau, Hawaii Tourism Authority, and trying to find that collaborative approach to not just events, but destination marketing. And this, I think, would touch all of us, whether you're in hospitality, business or entrepreneur. There's so many opportunities when you look at something through the lens of a destination. There's room for everybody in that. So I took a good look around me, saw the venues that we were working with, and then set out to meet a whole lot of people in the visitor industry to try to start to cross-pollinate our ideas, our schedules, our approaches to our audiences and visitors. And it was a really fun way for me to learn so much about the hospitality industry, about the visitor industry, about tourism and how that impacts a place, about the economic opportunities of having events and working through destinations. And I think Oahu is just such a microcosm for that sort of learning. So this is a wonderful place for you all to be as you set off on your tracks. And over time, the island of Oahu and the Oahu Visitors Bureau actually embraced surfing as their pillar. I'm not sure how familiar you are with each of the island chapters' approach. But for example, Maui is Island of the Whales, and Big Island, or the island of Hawaii, is the volcano island. And everybody's got their own pillar that they really use as their sort of cornerstone of how they put themselves out there into the visitor marketplace around the world. So we're really fortunate to have a great partner in Oahu Visitors Bureau that we get to be presented as a real cornerstone of our island. We're very humbled by that. Any questions? Is this making sense? And over time, it's not just the people that you have paid partnerships with, like Turtle Bay Resort is a very important partner of ours. It's home base for a lot of events, and we market them as we travel around the world to other destinations as well. But it's to meet as many diverse people and businesses as you can to bring value to your community. So this was just a screenshot I thought was interesting. Surf Jack. Has anyone been to Surf Jack in Waikiki? It's a really great little boutique hotel that hasn't tried to be anything it's not. It's an old, small building, and they've really stayed true to the context of their own environment and embrace surfing in a very unique, cultural and historic way. So there's a lot of really beautiful touches. I went and stayed in there a couple of weeks ago, and I really loved the vintage throwback kind of vibe that they have. It reminded me of an episode in Hawaii Five-0, the original series. So talking about Turtle Bay Resort, they are an official partner of ours around the world. And I put this in here too because after I'd been on the tour I think I was on the tour working all around the world for about 8 years. And at that point, I wanted to start a family and base myself in Hawaii, and really felt like I needed to somehow put the brakes on and continue to make a living. And that was when I started my own public relations, communications and marketing, a little boutique company. And I had a lot of varied clients, other water sports, brands like Quicksilver and Billabong as well. But I was really fascinated to learn more about the tourism and hospitality overlap with events and the world that I'd come from. So I presented over time various different ideas to Turtle Bay Resort, and there was a period where they went through a rebrand about 5, 6, maybe it's a little longer now, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I had the great opportunity of working with the owners of Turtle Bay Resort for about 3.5 years to do a rebrand of that hotel. And that was really anchored on experiences, on reconnecting with the local community, because it had really become sort of an island unto itself. and didn't have a very open door. There was a while there with our own events where they just couldn't give a damn what was down the road. And when the new ownership came in, it was really awesome to see them want to open the doors wide and invite the community back in, find out what was meaningful to the community, and then teach visitors that came to the resort more about what's authentic to this destination. And I think you guys also achieved that through the Polynesian Cultural Centre. All of your experiences become that Polynesian connection for people to understand a little bit more about the culture, and that's really the premise with which we rebranded Turtle Bay Resort. So I worked with them for 3.5 years, and surfing definitely was one of the pillars of their business as well. But I learned a lot about all that goes on behind the scenes as well. And there's so much overlap between the events world that I come from and the events world that goes on within a location like any resort or hotel. There's so much scheduling and special manpower behind the scenes. And it's about finding that authentic connection with a guest. And if you think back to that first slide I showed you in South Africa, those one-to-one meetings, like if I spelled it out for you, I could pinpoint at every phase of my life who the most influential individual was along the way. It's not always your own parents. It was people like Eddie Aikau and other surfers, business people, mentors. And your life becomes a timeline of these really impressionable and important relationships. And that's probably the greatest value I think a career has to offer you. If no one ever had to work, you might get up really late and miss half the day. You might not interact with others as much as you have to when you need to go out and make a living. And those things which sometimes we can look at as being ho-hum, I've got to go do it, it's actually where we can put ourselves out there and find those relationships over time that are going to help shape us. And it's very cliche to say that we never stop growing. We never stop learning. I know you're going to hear that all the time. The learning never ends. But what's fascinating is the learning becomes more important. I think the wiser you get, the older you get, the more you appreciate what the discomforts of learning will bring out of you. And there's things that are just so deep down in you that you might forget. Things that come from your childhood or personality traits that you had as a child that you kind of maybe grew out of or became more serious about. And all of a sudden, these things will surface again through relationships that you make. So work to me is the blessing in life. I have to tell you that I'm enthused to get out of bed every day. It's not because I've got the world's greatest job. It's a great job, for sure. But it's not that. It's got its mundane, right now I'm working on budgets for 2019 for all these events around the world. It's tedious. I had to learn how to do that too. I didn't go to school for finance or anything. It's been great to learn. But there's many things about work that are just tedious. It's 1 million emails a day. It's all the schedules and the meetings. But it's the moments in all of those where you're interacting with other people that become your fuel. So just remember, it's not what you do, it's who you do it with. That's what I think. It's really important who you connect with through your career and what you exchange. So I met Lau, who's sitting down the back this morning. I met Lau and heard his accent, and I've just come back from a few weeks in New Zealand, and that is like the one place on earth I'm personally passionate about. And so all of a sudden we've got a touch point that has anchored me here and to him and back to New Zealand and to all of you. And these are the networks and the fabrics that we create that really make it all worthwhile. I did a talk. Has anyone here heard of Nainoa Thompson with the Polynesian Voyaging Society in Hokulea? So I did a talk story with him at Turtle Bay. He's a wonderful person. And I thought he explained it the best. And that was, as they set off around the world on their voyage, they were pulling behind them a thread that they were going to weave through. They were going to weave Hawaiian culture through everywhere they went. And they were going to pick up culture everywhere they went and weave that into their story as well. And that's really what we're all doing. We're all trailing a thread behind us that is going to connect other people to our story. And that's where the most powerful opportunities in business come. Not sure if you guys know Heli Huli, a little company out here on the North Shore. Brett Lee was a graduate from this school, wonderful entrepreneur. And if you don't know him, I'd encourage you, if you're in the Entrepreneur series, to step out and meet him, because he's done a wonderful job of creating a business on the North Shore that's very meaningful to a lot of people. That was one of the initiatives that came up through the Turtle Bay rebrand. But again, it's his interpretation of his environment, where he's seen opportunities and made relationships with people and turned that into his own life. Another phase I think that's really important, and the reason why I'd love to come here and present at this school or any school, is just the youth. I have a non-profit that we do junior development through surfing, and it's not just about events. We just had one this week actually at Turtle Bay Resort, which was really fun. But
Have a name?
the non-profit, it's called the Hawaii Youth Surfing Development Organization, a real mouthful. HYSDO. HYSDO, H-Y-S-D-O. Oh, you can't quite see it. HYSDO.org. And it's not just about putting on surfing events for young kids. In fact, the point of it all is to provide real-world experiences. I'm finding in secondary school right now that real-world learning is becoming more and more important. I think education's changing so much. And with technology, we can learn so much at a young age, and these kids are coming to school already with a track in mind, and they've learned that through interacting with technology and people through technology. So we go into, we have a relationship year-round with Farrington High School in town, and they have these business academies which are really cool. And what we do is we take the basic common denominators of all business, which can be media and communications, jobs like catering, security, event production, and these sorts of things that we do. And we go into the school and offer business academy learning all throughout the year with these students. And at the end of the year, when we have the Triple Crown and other events going on, they're invited out in their respective groups to come and get some first-hand experience in that area. And again, I think the thing that I learned the most out of working in these school environments is just how valuable it is for us as we all grow and mature over time to continue to go back to early education, secondary education, college education, to groups like you to find out where you're at and learn about how to embrace that, how you're going to change our business model over time because you've got so much influence on what we do, and how we're going to have to adapt our own business model based on the generations that are coming through. So I love that part of our learning, and again, that sort of just stresses the point on the importance of continuing to learn. And as much as we try to share with these youth groups and school groups, we walk away from it learning a whole lot more about where to take our business to. So that's fun. All right, I thought I'd, for the hospitality and tourism side of things, and entrepreneur, I guess, is just talk about a little bit of the changing marketplace of tourism these days. And I get to see what it's shaping up as around the world as I travel. But it's a very different landscape now to what it was even 5 years ago when I was working with Turtle Bay Resort. And the WSL, the World Surf League, we partner globally with Airbnb. It's been a fascinating experience for me because we've learned so much about the challenges of sort of the vacation rental business everywhere around the world. And in fact, Hawaii, it's a really hot topic here at the moment. And as we were providing feedback to leaders at Airbnb, they started to see also through sort of legislative challenges and permitting challenges and community challenges that you can't preempt until you're in it and it's evolving. I think Airbnb started to evolve and encounter all kinds of challenges that they would never have imagined in the beginning. They became pretty hugely popular. I know I just did my New Zealand trip through them, 3 different houses in New Zealand. And it's a wonderful way to see the world, but it also does have challenges for established hotels, for laws in different communities, can put rents way up through the roof because people are putting their houses out for vacation rental at higher prices than a long-term renter could get. So it's been an incredible learning process, but as we gave so much of this feedback to Airbnb along the way, they've shifted their model now to really focus on experiences. And that's where all of tourism seems to be positioned at the moment into how do we create experiences that are going to draw the right people to our community. And I read about a little island north of New Zealand in the Air New Zealand in-flight magazine, which is so smart in really regulating the amount of visitors and the price points that these visitors come and experience in their location so that they can still retain their integrity culturally and as a community. So these are challenges I think all of you are going to be great decision makers and influencers in as you go forward. And I encourage you to really learn a lot about this adaptive space of Airbnb or anything in that, home and away. There's a lot of different players in the field. But learn a lot about that because no matter which strain you're in here, entrepreneurship or hospitality or business, if you're in these tourism type destinations, it's going to be a very big part of your business going forward. What's great about the experiential side of it is that every individual now has the opportunity to be in tourism. You can offer your own unique skill, your passion point, your hobby. You can be a host in that now, which is really fun. It's a great way to meet people around the world as well. So I just wanted to bring that up today because I think that's going to be a powerful sort of overlap of technology, being able to book all these things and find unique places as you go around the world for you to expand your own business opportunities. And that sort of brings me back to the beginning and gives us some time for questions. But, that's my story in a little nutshell. And every single one of you have your own unique story as well. And if there's any kind of, kernel of wisdom that I might have, it's that you should just never forget who you are as you put yourself out into the workplace to find your job. I think there's a lot of pressure on everybody to graduate, find a career, get financially stable and make a living for yourself and your family. But along the way, there are many, many traps to losing your own story and your authenticity. And what makes the world the most powerful place and what has driven the most successful businesses is the people who have interpreted themselves and their own story in a unique way to create a unique business proposition. And I'm always available, as the faculty here know. We've had a number of interns and different people from this university, but even if, I'm happy to share an email address if anybody has questions. But I would always encourage you to tap in internally to who you are, what your values are, what your most powerful ideas of yourself are, and not compromise that as you head out for a job. I don't think I've ever applied for a standard job, even within the industry that I've been in. I've taken the things that are important to me, that are ideas that I think are unique ideas that I've had, and then framed those up as an opportunity for the most appropriate company to utilize. So a lot of the events over time, we've kind of formulated ourselves through our own relationships and ideas. A lot of the programs for places like Turtle Bay Resort or visitors bureaus have been propositions that we've brought to them because of our own experiences. So don't ever feel like when you apply for the job and it gives you an outline of what that looks like, don't ever be afraid to interpret that to you and show how you can bring something very unique to that role that's going to set that company or that business opportunity, set it apart from everything else, because it can become very vanilla out there in the workplace. And you don't have to be controversial to get a bit of market share or a bit of media space. What you do have to be is unique for sure. And in any way that I can continue to help you guys do that, I'm always available. I'm always happy to answer questions, and maybe we can turn it over to that now. Don't leave me standing here. Thank you. You always do.
So I haven't taken the newspaper for a while, but I know there was a time when there was word that the Triple Crown might not happen.
Yep.
You and the city, well, not me personally, but anyway, the WSL and the city were fighting over, give us an update on what's going on.
Yeah, so it's status quo. Everything goes on as per usual. In fact, we were just talking last night. Does everyone know Millennial, the little market in Haleiwa, the grocery store? So I had a permit meeting at Sunset Beach yesterday for one of the Triple Crown events, and the city, in all of its no wisdom, was trying to tell me that we were going to have to fit our entire structure within a 20 by 20 foot area this year. Which, if anyone knows anything about broadcasting with giant 36-foot trailers and internet, big machinery and equipment and cameras and internet connection and all these things that happens around events nowadays, you can't fit that into 20 by 20. And the reason we have to go roadside up there is because we were the instigators of protecting the beach and investing money into replanting that berm and fencing it and keeping people out like ourselves. And taking ourselves roadside to try to save the beach resource. So I had a meeting with them yesterday, drove back through Haleiwa, stopped at Malama Market and parked in the dirt lot. And as I was driving out, I was in the WSL truck, and this car with a couple local guys and surfboards on the roof pulled right up, and they go, "So what? No more pipe?" And we cracked up laughing because there's a couple local boys that are just trying to make a statement about the fact that we lost pipe. Not knowing that we didn't lose anything. We've got the permit, it's going ahead. But we figured last night that we'd make a shirt that just says, "Got pipe." With a big check on the back, like, we've got it. So it's an interesting point you bring up, because in doing anything in a local community, it requires permits, it requires working with local government chapters, and I'm not going to lie to you, it sucks. It's the worst part of what I do. I'm not a politician, but I'm forced to be one sometimes. And there's times where you have to step out from being a nice guy to being adamant about what you know is the right thing to do, which is kind of what I was saying to you. You can't compromise values. It's not driven by a dollar. It's just driven by what should be able to happen. And surfing's a huge part of Hawaii's history and culture. And professional surfing for sure is only one aspect of it, but we have the largest share of voice, and it's through that that we can talk about environmental protection, which we do in our broadcast, about communities, sensitivities in the places we visit, which we talk about. And it's all of these things that make me want to fight to keep our events going, in spite of silly laws and permits and things that often they just lose sight. You know, I'll be honest and tell you, and I think there's maybe a couple of people in this room who've got experience with it, but you go meet with some of these tourism chapters in Honolulu, government agencies, senators and city and county park departments. You go into buildings that have no windows with people who maybe haven't been to the North Shore in 5 years. And that's who you're doing business with. And it is honestly like banging your head against a wall sometimes. So it does get dirty, it does get rowdy, and you really have to go home and breathe deep and think about what your values are and what you're willing to fight for. And, you know, sometimes there's wars in surfing too, so we just got to do it. Yes?
What do you guys do how do you guys address the homeless population when presenting tourism events?
The homeless population when presenting events?
Yeah, for example, a lot of sometimes discomforts the
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
touring around.
It's really true. And in some of the places we go to, like I've spent quite a bit of time in Indonesia this year, it's not so much homelessness there as it is a very low income base for most people. So I think you still have to have that cultural sensitivity that is unique to each location. One thing I think that's a little bit different about surfing is that traditionally places with great waves and coastlines as a whole are typically a higher cost of living kind of an area, and a little bit more remote as well. So you're not necessarily going to have as much interaction as you are if you go down to downtown Honolulu. But I think your point is interesting. And what I would say to that is we can't change a destination simply by coming to that destination. What we can do is work hard, and we do work hard, to try to stretch the economic impact that we can bring to an area as far as we can. So if that's local farming, we've done things on the North Shore with the homeless group specifically. Part of our sustainability program is around recyclables, and we've encouraged them to either collect them, or we'll do the collecting for them, and at the end of the day at a set time they're able to come and pick up a bag each and take that to cash it in themselves. You can't change the fabric of society overnight. You can work with it and you can do your little bit. Our head office is in Santa Monica. There's a huge homeless and drug dependent population right around our office. It's kind of wild at times. And I know I can't change that person's life, but it's up to me to decide if I want to do the little thing I can do. So if I'm coming home from a business dinner with my box of leftovers or whatever, I'll find somebody to share that with. If I got $5 in my pocket, it's up to me if I choose to give it or not. You never want to withhold, but I think it remains a real collective of personal decisions in how those types of challenges are met. So we definitely explore what opportunities we can bring to the table. I think we probably all know at that level money doesn't solve everything. There's so much behind homelessness. It's a huge issue. And I hope that for all of us, we never find it comfortable to drive past homeless populations. I know I was thinking so much about it in Honolulu earlier this week. I don't ever want to be numb to seeing somebody struggling. And if I can help as an individual, I will. And if I can help through policy or company policy, I will. And I'll take what we naturally do, and if there's a way to help through that, I will. But I'm going to stay true to what we do and who we are and help that way. Does that answer that? Yeah.
Have you traveled to Indonesia, to Tahiti, to all those places?
Mm-hmm.
According to your experience, you said that how do you see the world? It's important, and how do others interpret it? It's important. I was wondering, how do you see Tahiti?
Tahiti's magic. I love Tahiti. Yeah. You should be proud to be a Tahitian. That is such a strong culture. Like Hawaii, it's a very small destination, but it is so rich in who it is. And you've been so smart in managing your land and your, sale of your land outside. I think it's only recently opened up a little bit. You've really protected land for Tahitians. And I could probably speak for the whole tour, athletes and all of our staff, that is one place in the world we look forward to going to every year. And it's challenging because when the most beautiful places often are the smallest, and there's not much financial support in a location like that, but you can't match the personal experience that you will get out of Indigenous communities as a whole. They're so in touch with who they are, and they remind us to slow down, stop trying to change the world around you, learn a little bit about why it's nice not to change sometimes, and get back in touch with your respect for other people. So Tahiti's an important touchstone for that. Number one on the list. outside New Zealand, but we don't have an event there. Yeah.
I'm just a huge Eddie Cow fan, so I know you mentioned meeting him twice. I'd love to hear just briefly more about that experience, how old you were, the memories you had about meeting him.
Yeah, so I was only 2 when my family met him, and in fact, they were putting on a surfing event in South Africa my mum was helping with. And she had heard there was a team coming from Hawaii, and she'd always wanted to meet a Hawaiian. She'd never been there. In fact, they got to South Africa from Australia on a ship. Took 2 weeks. So flight wasn't a big thing then. So having a team coming all the way to South Africa from Hawaii was a huge deal. And that was during the time of apartheid. And so there was segregation between coloureds, whites, blacks. And blacks actually weren't allowed on the beach. So my mum worked out that Eddie Aikau was a very dark-skinned Hawaiian and probably didn't know if he was even allowed to go and surf. He was staying in a different hotel to the rest of his team. And it was actually that which led my mother to get down to the beach before the sun came up one day, figuring he must be trying to surf before he was visible. And sure enough, that's what happened. So when we found him, we went and pulled him out of his hotel and brought him to our house to stay with us, and then introduced him to a lot of people. We moved to Hawaii to live with his family in 73 and 74, which is kind of where my early memories start. And I think what was, you know, when people gain some kind of notoriety, you know, when they pass away or in his case go missing at sea, we can really create personas that are larger than life and make these people heroic when they were just human beings like all of us. And Eddie was definitely one of the most humble and basic, I say that in the nicest way, the most basic human beings that we've had the good fortune of knowing. He had very strong family values. His world revolved around the family schedule, which I think you would all relate to very well. And his priorities were family and his spirituality first, surfing and other people very close to that. And when he traveled, when he used to come and stay with us in Australia, we'd take him to school as our greatest show and tell. And he was awesome. He learned how to play Australian like folk songs and things on the guitar in slack key. And he traveled everywhere with his guitar, and music was an icebreaker for him on the land. Surfing was how he met people in the water, but music was a way that he connected with people on land, and that was his form of storytelling and sharing. And it broke so many barriers when he entered uncomfortable situations or environments like South Africa. He had a guitar with him there too, and it was an opportunity to find something that goes beyond belief systems, beyond skin color and religion and all of those sorts of things. And he was just a very powerful person to know that the most basic things that are in our personal constitution remain our most powerful points. So I won't turn him into a hero. For sure, he was an amazing big wave rider, but he was a very credible and honorable human being. And for that, I think that's our greatest accomplishment. It's the only thing I ask of my children is I don't mind what you do so long as it's honest and you find meaning in it and you're a good person for the rest of the world to interact with. Beyond that, be what you want to be.
How hard is it to work with the lawlessness of the culture? We went to Indonesia this summer for a couple months and just enjoyed the swell that came through. And we saw that the legal aspect of it all is half of the equation, and the social and cultural aspects as well.
Yeah.
So have you ever had a problem balancing the cultural and legal aspects of these events?
Did somebody ask you to ask me that? I had a nightmare in Indonesia this year, to be honest with you. A lot of island cultures, and I hope I don't get myself into hot water here, but I'll be honest with you, my experience in island cultures is that they have a very strong undercurrent. Call that mafia, call that gangs, call that whatever, it doesn't really matter. Lawlessness, it's everywhere. I'll be honest with you. It's just a lot more organized and clever in developed nations. But when you are in economically challenged environments, they see you as an opportunity. When you're an outside organization, particularly from America, you've got a target on your back for sure. And I had a situation where none of our credit cards, corporate cards, worked in Indonesia. And I had the dubious responsibility, and I always say it's great to be a short woman. Nobody sees a short woman coming. So when I was running around the cliff tops of Uluwatu with a backpack full of stacks of cash to try to pay for everything, I did have a bodyguard, but not many people thought I was much of a target. That said, some group over there did work it out and tried to extort me in a particular fashion. And there's actually a law in the United States. I'm not a legal person, but we've got a large legal team, and so you might want to look into it. But there is a law in the United States that you cannot engage in basically like extortion activities, and that includes accepting money or giving money in a fraudulent way. So I can't go to Indonesia. It's very easy to go to Indonesia and pay your way through everything. You can pay off all kinds of people. That's against the law as an American corporation. And you can be in some very, very hot water if you do that. So I had to face, on my own actually, a confrontation with a kind of a mafia group who wanted to extort me for money just because we were there. And I had to say no. And I won't go into the ins and outs of it, but you can do it. It honestly does help to be a woman. I think we have a lot of unique cards to play when it comes to business and environments like that. And that's not to say I'm selling myself as a female. It's that women are nurturing mothers. We bring a different kind of an energy to business. We don't have what some people would call a male ego or whatever at the table, and it changes the dynamics of negotiation to be a woman. And that's got nothing to do with your appearance or what you're wearing. That has everything to do with your nature. And so I'm also a little bit outspoken on the male and female thing because I think we each do have some unique talents. And for me, I've found it easier to negotiate my way through it. But it exists, believe me, it's true. And it's unavoidable in a lot of places. And you're going to have to tap in really deeply to your values and to your own honor and ethics. They will be challenged along the way. Every day is an opportunity to slip up and take an easy road out. And you will find that the easiest paths and the paths that involve money will become the costliest to you personally as you go. So never compromise. Yep.